Hey everyone, and welcome to Geometric Advanced Stock Analytics, and today we are looking at Howmet Aerospace Incorporated. Okay, a quick disclaimer before I get started. I am not a financial advisor and nothing here is financial advice. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Also, if you like deep dive analytics and dashboards like the one I'm going to be showing you today, please like this video and hit the subscribe button, because I think this tool is really useful and can really help you and helps me make investing decisions. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to get my pen opened up here. So I've added a dashboard summary to my more detailed grayometric dashboard that we'll get into next. This is more of a text description of the main findings of the more detailed dashboard. So we'll just walk through this quickly and then we'll dive into the more detailed dashboard next. So like I said, I'm looking at Howmet Aerospace Incorporated, currently trading at 207.43, and it's in the aerospace and defense category. There's a few key questions that I answer on this dashboard summary. So has this stock outperformed its threshold? Recent data shows that this stock has outperformed its threshold and it's strengthening. Is this stock volatile? Recent data shows that this stock is steady and is more volatile than it used to be. We'll get into exactly like the data that's feeding each of these the answers to these questions, because these are auto text generated based on the numbers on the next sheet. So it's a simplified kind of representation of the numbers that we'll get into next. Is this stock steady? Right here. Recent data shows that this stock has had more winning streaks than losing streaks and has been getting worse. So it does have more winning streaks than losing streaks, but the amount more has been decreasing. So if you haven't seen my videos before, what I do is I take a series of metrics and I compare them across two periods or eras. The most recent one could be like a year, and the other period could be 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's really up to the user's choice when selecting the periods in this dashboard. Also, is this stock expensive? Recent data shows this stock is expensive compared to its industry average. Right up here in the middle, I have an overall assessment of the stock's trend. So basically, I'm saying here the stock's current trend quality is medium and the trend trajectory is declining. So basically, the medium up here is an assessment of the most recent period, and the declining assessment here is a comparison between the most recent and the earlier period. And so based on those two findings here and how they relate to each other, there is an overall assessment of the stock right here, and we are saying that Howmet Aerospace has a neutral trend profile. Let's clear out all of this and escape. Let's go into the more detailed dashboard now. So let me zoom in here up to the top. All right, so I am designing this dashboard for personal use. So I've highlighted in dark blue with slightly lighter blue writing the only 3 cells where the user would have to input data, and then the rest will self-populate, and this stock updates every day without you having to do it. All right, so first I went in here and I chose Howmet Aerospace, and then you define period 1. I defined period 1 as January 3rd, 2022 to November 7th, 2024. Once you do that, period 2 automatically generates from the last day of period 1 to the most recent trading day. My first stat here is the threshold outperformance index. And simply what this is, I look at the actual win frequency over this period, and that turned out to be 56.4%. And then I compare it to the threshold win frequency to break even, which was 49.7%. How I calculated this was that I looked at the size of the up days and when the stock went up. So the average of the up days when the stock goes up, and then the average of the down days when the stock goes down. And from that, you can determine that it needed to win 49.7% of the time to break even. Comparing those two numbers, so dividing 56 over the 49, that's how we get our threshold outperformance index of 1.13. And then you do the same thing for period 2 and you get the value of 1.19. Now we're into our stability score. So basically I looked at the days above a 3% change in the positive direction and the days below a negative 3% change in the negative direction. So 3.5% of the days are above 3% and 2.9% of the days are below negative 3% for Howmet Aerospace. Then you sum those two together and take it away from 100% and you get a stability score of 0.94. And then you do the same thing for period 2 and we had a stability score of 0.92. I'm going to zoom out of here, and then we're going to zoom back in again right here. So next we have our positive trend persistence index. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm counting the 5-day winning streaks and counting the 5-day losing streaks, and then as a total, how many of them are of the winning kind. So you can see for Howmet Aerospace in period 1, they had 13 5-day winning streaks and only 2 5-day losing streaks. So that gave us a positive trend persistence index of 0.87. So that's, you take the percentage of your total days, or no, so you take the percentage of your total streaks, of your total 5-day streaks, and it's 87% of your 5-day streaks are winning streaks. Are of the winning kind, and we just changed that to 0.87 to get an index value. Do the same thing over period 2 and we got a value of 0.8. Next we're going to look at our trend quality index. You can see we have two numbers here, 0.983 and we have 0.861. 0.983 comes from this chart here, 0.861 comes from the chart next to it way over there. So we're going to have a look at that now and explain to you what's going on. So let me zoom in here. So here we have for period 1 my threshold outperformance index. But as we looked at it at the very beginning on this worksheet, it was an average of an entire period. So instead what I've done over here is I've calculated that index over a 51-day rolling average to see how that index is performing. So what I can do, I plot this. I plot all this data up for the entirety of period 1, and I determine from this data, I can determine the standard deviation, and I apply a trend line. As you can see, just a simple Excel trend line. So from those two pieces of information, so based on the standard deviation and the trajectory of the trend line, we can evaluate the stability and robustness and efficiency of the stock's recent behavior. And so we represent that overall assessment as a level of quality. So that's what that score of 0.983 represents here, down for period 1. Let me get out of here. Let's get the writing off. And then we escape, and let's zoom in over here on period 2. And it's the same thing here. We plot the threshold outperformance index over our 51-day rolling average. And then we look at the standard deviation of the data, and we look at the trajectory of the trend line. And based on the standard deviation and that trajectory, we evaluate the stability, robustness, and efficiency of this stock's behavior in period 2. And so again, representing this overall assessment as a quality score. Let's escape again. All right, now we've got a couple of more charts to look at here. Let's zoom in. There we go. And so for period 1 on this chart, I'm representing two things. I have win percentage in blue, so that's basically what percent of the days does the stock go up. We can see an upward trend here, ending at about 60%. It's trending in the right direction. 60% win frequency is nothing to sneeze at. And then we also look in orange, the up over down. So over a 51, again, both of these are over a 51-day rolling average. What is the average size of an up day compared to the average size of a down day? We like this value to be over 100% because that means your up days are bigger than your down days, and we plot how that's changing over time. So on average in period 1, the up days were getting slightly bigger than the down days. Though there is a lot of variability, you can see that for yourself in the data. Now let's escape. That automatically erases things. And let's zoom in here. Looking at the same data for period 2 for Howmet Aerospace, we can see that the trend line is pretty flat, slightly going down for win percentage, ending up here around 55%. And then we look at the size of the ups versus the size of the downs. We like all the orange to be above this 100% line. Most of them are. So that's a good sign. You like to see that. You like to see your up days bigger than your down days, obviously. All right, let's escape out of here. A couple more charts to look at. I'm not going to zoom in for these. So what we've got here is something called the Relative Strength Index, RSI. It's a momentum trading metric. So basically, it can be an indicator if a stock is oversold or overbought, and a correction may be possible. Of course, not guaranteed. You can see that for the most recent period for Howmet Aerospace, it's going upwards, trying to get to the but almost at the overbought line, but not quite there yet. Still in between those two barriers, not barriers, in between those two limits: the overbought, and the oversold. Finally, at the bottom here, we look at the price per share over period 1 and 2. You can see that Howmet had a pretty consistent growth over period 1, and it's had ups and downs, but pretty steady going up in period 2 as well. Let's get out of here and escape, and we're going to zoom up. Well, here we go. Let's zoom in here. There. So we got a few more data points to look at. For aerospace and defense, the price over earnings for Howmet Aerospace is 58.1. Its industry average is 32.4. These are the two metrics I compare to gauge on that summary dashboard whether or not Howmet is expensive or not. So because its price over earnings is bigger than its industry average, compared to its industry, it's expensive. Here we have its market cap of $83.2 billion, and we have an annual rate of return of 61.8%. That's based on the first date of period 1 up to the last date of period 2. So as the user, you can just put in whatever dates you want to get an annual rate of return of any stock. All right, let's escape out of here. And then we've got one more thing to look at. Let's get my pen going again. It's this neutral trend profile overall rating at the top here. So when I talk about the trend profile, I'm considering the trend quality of both of these charts. So basically, it's looking at these two numbers down here. We had a high trend quality in period 1. We also had a pretty good trend quality in period 2, but it has gone down between the periods. So that's why it's getting a score of a neutral trend profile. It's not something higher like a moderate or a strong trend profile. There's not many stocks in these 5,000 that are going to have a strong trend profile, because those ones have to be high in period 1 and even higher in period 2. So it's just setting a really high threshold for that strong rating. All right, so let's escape out of here. All right, that's pretty much all I have for you today. So in closing, like I said, I am planning in the future at some point to sell this dashboard online for personal use. So I am very interested to hear any feedback in the comments about what you find useful, what could be improved, and what is maybe a bit confusing to understand and needs a little more clarity. All feedback is welcome, not just positive. Give the negative feedback as well. I need to turn this into something that will provide value if I ever hope to sell a single one of these dashboards online. So I appreciate anyone helping me get to that level. And to wrap up, everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not financial advice, and I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making any investment decisions. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.